Hey class! After we met this morning, I felt like there could have been a little bit of confusion regarding these theories of emotion. I spent some time looking back over my lesson and thought about a different way to phrase this information to you. So if you struggled with these theories in class this morning, my hope is that this lesson will help you untangle any confusion that you may have. And my offer still stands that if you need to come and meet with me and talk about these theories with me, I'm happy to do that. Let's take a second look. Theory number one. This is the common sense theory. And what we're looking at here is what a lot of people at that time thought was just common sense. And if you're following along in your book, I just grabbed mine. I'm going to give you a page number to refer to. We are on page 378. All right, so let's take a look. In this particular theory, I see something. That's the stimulus. Whether it's the alligator here in this picture or the dog example they use in your text, I see something. That's my stimulus. The common sense theory says that immediately this stimulus leads to an emotion, in this case fear, which then leads to bodily arousal. In this case, it would be shaking or trembling. Now, this is a product of your autonomic nervous system. Remember that from chapter 2? You don't even have to think about it. It's just automatic. These are the things we do without having to consciously think about them. So another way we can look at this is, I'm shaking because I'm afraid. So the emotion comes first. I'm afraid first, and then I start shaking. That's common sense theory. Okay, let's look at theory number 2, the James Lange theory on page 379. Again, I have my stimulus. We can go with the example of the dog they have in the text on page 379. And in this case, what I'm going to do is a stimulus leads me to have a bodily reaction first, and then I interpret that as an emotion. This is the common sense theory flipped. So all we've done is contrast two theories. One thing has changed. This time in James Lange, I feel bodily arousal first, which then helps me interpret that into an emotion. All right, another way of looking at that is to say, I'm afraid because I'm shaking. So now all we've done is make the emotion come before the bodily reaction. So bodily arousal, then emotion. Okay, let's take a look at theory number 3. Turn over to page 380. Cannon Bard. These two gentlemen had similar ideas, so they fused them together. Again, we have a stimulus. Let's use the dog. And then what happens is there's activity in my brain. I'm thinking about it, and then that sends a signal to arouse my body, and I interpret the emotion at the same time. So all we've done here is, instead of separating the bodily arousal and the emotion into two separate reactions, I'm saying they happen simultaneously at the same time. I see the dog, I have some brain activity, tells me what's going on with this stimulus, and then my body reacts and I interpret that emotion at the same time. Another way of looking at this, I'm shaking and feeling afraid at the same time. That's Cannon Bard. All right, let's look at theory number 4. This comes to us from Darwin. What we're doing here is expressions give the brain necessary information to decide the feeling. So I see the dog. We're going to use that same stimulus of the dog. This is at the bottom of page 380. I see the dog, and this snarling dog causes arousal and a facial expression. And this facial expression gives feedback to my brain about how I'm feeling. And then the brain will interpret that emotion and may even intensify how I'm feeling. So one more time. I see the snarling dog. This causes me to be aroused in my face. So I have a facial expression. This facial expression gives feedback to my brain about the emotion, and the brain then interprets this emotion and could then intensify how I'm feeling. Another way of looking at this. My fearful facial expression, so the look of fear on my face, enhances my feeling of fear. I know that I'm afraid because my brain has interpreted that facial expression. That's the facial feedback theory. All right, let's look at number 5. Remember, we're switching gears for these last two theories. These are more cognitive theories of emotion. The early theories that we've been over so far dealt with emotions and physical reactions, but what about how we interpret those things? This is where the cognitive side enters. Let's look at theory number 5. This is going to be on page 381. This is the Schachter-Singer cognitive arousal theory. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier. They call this a two-factor theory because I have to experience bodily arousal and label before I know how I feel. So two things have to happen before I can determine this emotion. I have to experience the physical arousal in my body and labeling that arousal based on cues from my environment. So these two things happen at the same time, which results in the labeling of an emotion. So remember what I said in class. My shaking could have a number of causes. Sometimes we shake when we're excited. Sometimes we shake when we're just cold. Sometimes we shake because we're afraid. So what needs to happen is I've got to interpret that physical sensation in my body. I have to label that physical sensation before I know how I'm feeling. So here there's a marriage or an interaction of what's happening in my body and how I make sense of that. And this interaction between what's happening in my body and me thinking about it is what allows me to ultimately label how I'm feeling. Let's take a look at this. So on page 381, I see the dog. My body is aroused, and I'm trying to do some labeling of that arousal at the same time. So this is me trying to figure out, why am I shaking? Then I feel the emotion. So this is very similar to the James Lange theory, but it adds the element of cognitive labeling. I've got to decide, why is my body aroused? So a stimulus, this dog, is going to lead to both arousal in my body and the labeling of that arousal, which leads to my experience of labeling that emotion. And my environment is going to give me cues as to what's happening. So let's take a look at this in a different way. This angry dog, because remember I'm using my environment for cues as to how I should be labeling, this angry dog appears to me to be dangerous. And because I see that as dangerous, that makes me feel afraid. This shaking that I'm experiencing is because of fear. I have deemed that this is a dangerous situation, and I'm shaking because I'm afraid. Okay, one last theory. This is Lazarus's cognitive-mediational theory. This is going to be over here on page 382. Actually 382 and 383. So here, I have my stimulus. It causes an immediate appraisal or interpretation. Oh wow, that dog looks really angry and he's not completely behind a fence, so this is dangerous. And this cognitive interpretation results in an emotion followed by a response within my body. So we're breaking apart the emotion and the bodily response again. What matters most here with this theory is how I interpret that stimulus. So I see the stimulus, I interpret that, I know how I'm feeling, and my body responds. Another way of looking at that is this. This angry dog is dangerous, therefore I should feel scared. So it was my immediate interpretation of looking at that dog that led to my emotion and then whatever bodily response I had, whether that was shaking, running, screaming, freezing, whatever it is. So this one is all about interpretation. This is where each of us would be different because we interpret things differently. So if you're still having trouble with this particular set of theories, I encourage you to take a look at this video. And I'm going to take you to my psych lab. Notice I am logged into my psych lab for your class, and I am on the quiz calendar. From here, I want to click on Video Series, and I can enter. And then I'm going to look based on topic for this particular video. And I already got this one ready, but I just want to show you how to find it. So I go down here to episode 12. This is all about motivation and emotion. And I can select theories of emotion, and I already opened that here. This video, you can see, will take you through the James Lange theory, the Cannon-Bard theory, and the Schachter-Singer theory. It compares and contrasts those 3 theories out of the 6. This is a great way to review, and it even includes some concepts of motivation and other theories of motivation as well. Again, you have a crash course video that can help you too. I am available to assist you. I just want to make sure that you understand these theories, and I thought maybe phrasing it in a different way than what we did in class might be helpful to someone. So that's it for this video. Please let me know if you still need additional help because I'm happy to assist you.